My best friend committed suicide a little over a year ago. Did you know that the 10th leading cause of death in the US alone, in most cases, completely preventable? Just as I have been, I'm sure the majority of you have also been affected by this tragedy at some point in your life or will be. The key to preventing further loss is spreading awareness and education. The rate of death caused by suicide is overwhelming, and there are many signs to watch out for so that help can be provided before it's too late. Before getting into how you can make a difference, though, I think it's important to reiterate how much of a public health concern it really is. 1 in 44,000 American adults attempt suicide every year, and over 40,000 succeed. For young people, the rate is even higher. As of 2015, suicide is the second leading cause of death for ages 15 to 34, and it's the third leading cause of death for children ages 10 to 14. Males are not only more likely to attempt suicide, but they are also more likely to have successful attempts compared to females. This is interesting because it's usually females that are more likely to have mood disorders. Also, males are typically prefer more violent methods, such as the use of firearms or strangulation, where females are more likely to overdose or slit their wrists. Not only do their methods differ, but they also tend to exhibit contrasting warning signs. Males are often more external about their inner turmoils and can be angry and aggressive and act out, whereas females tend to suffer in silence and will think and be more emotional. One theory proposes that males are simply more impulsive, hence they're more likely to just go through with it, whereas females kind of like to stew on things and overthink everything. But before getting into more warning signs and preventative measures, it helps to understand the underlying causes. The most obvious and commonly reported factor is the presence of a psychiatric disorder or mental illness. Mood disorders such as major depression and manic depression, which is known as bipolar, pose the most risk. However, due to high comorbidity rates, which means that an individual has at least two or more disorders going on simultaneously, it can be hard to pinpoint which symptoms are causing the suicidal thoughts and behavior. For example, someone with depression and anxiety, they might the final straw might be the anxiety symptoms such as panic attacks and insomnia, and it might not be from the hopelessness and feelings of low self-worth. Other disorders commonly associated with suicidal thoughts and behavior include psychotic disorders like schizophrenia, substance abuse disorders, eating disorders, and impulse control disorders like indeterminate emotional disorder. All these disorders have several overlapping symptoms that correlate with suicidal thoughts and behavior, such as hopelessness, impulsiveness, high emotional reactivity, and anhedonia, which is the inability to feel pleasure. These symptoms tend to cause a strong desire for escape, which makes suicide all the more appealing. Now that we know what causes these maladaptive and dangerous thoughts, the next step is intervention. You can't save everyone, especially those who don't want to be saved. It's just a fact of life. However, this doesn't mean that someone who exhibits these deadly desires is a lost cause. In many cases, suicide is preventable, and knowing what to look for and how to go about helping are the most important tools you can have in saving lives from this tragic end. Here are several signs that someone is actively thinking about and/or planning a suicide attempt. In some cases, it'll be a very clear-cut, obvious red flag. They will vocalize their desire for death, whether it's saying, I just wish it would all end, or I'm going to do this, or I want to die. Less obvious signs, though, it could include withdrawing from others, like family and friends, or getting their affairs in order, such as giving away their possessions, getting their bank accounts closed, stuff like that. Also look out for marked mood changes. If they've been down and sad for a while and suddenly have like a spike in energy and mood, it might mean that they have finally come to terms and made a decision to end their lives. Changes in eating and sleeping habits also typically indicate that something is not right. It's especially if it's accompanied with other signs of distress. Anxiety, agitation, and panic attacks are common for those at risk, which is causing the sleeplessness and the lack of appetite. In younger people, look for a decline in school or reckless behavior. They might not see the point anymore, and that's a huge red flag. In older adults, it's harder to tell, but they might show irritability and rage at their jobs, and they might partake in risky, life-threatening behaviors such as driving fast or doing something that poses a risk to their health. Lastly, an odd preoccupation with death could imply suicidal ideation, which could very likely lead to suicidal behavior. So if they seem to be researching a lot on ways to die or reading a lot of very morbid books and watching morbid movies on dying, on top of all the other symptoms, that is a huge red flag. Now you might be asking yourself, now what? Every circumstance is different, and confrontation could make things worse, especially in adults who are under a parental or authoritative thumb. When teachers or parents observe the warning signs, they can immediately sit down and talk with the child or young adults and get them into therapy or whatever other help they can get them. However, for adults, it's much more complicated because you don't want to overwhelm them and scare them away or scare them into it. Many who have a history of mental illness and suicidal thoughts probably have had a therapist at some point or currently do have a therapist. So you could contact them, or they convince them to contact the therapist. Or convincing them to go to a hospital or get checked into an inpatient care facility will also go a long way. The team in charge of their care, such as therapists and doctors, will typically provide both talk and drug therapy. Lastly, just don't leave them alone. Remind them they're not alone and that they matter. Social connections go a long way. You should now have some understanding of the underlying causes, warning signs, and methods of intervention and prevention. Suicide is a growing epidemic, and not only in our country but the whole world, and it's almost always preventable. The underlying causes are not always easy to pinpoint, but they do go a long way in understanding the person's background and level of risk. Everyone is different, so get the facts, but helping is key. You also can't effectively treat someone without knowing what the problem is, as simple as that. Know what to look out for, know what to do when you think someone's in danger to themselves. It's a touchy subject, but doing something is always better than nothing at all when it comes down to it. Many suicidal individuals don't want to die, they just want some relief. They're crying out for help, and it's up to us to step in and remind them that they do matter. My best friend might still be here if only more of us paid attention.